This is my speech on aviation, and this is my audience. We're going to learn a little bit about the history of aviation. We're going to go into learning how to fly and getting your private pilot's license. So we're going to start with a little bit of history of aviation. So who invented flight?
The Wright brothers.
Sorry to ruin your history classes, but no. In fact, the Wright brothers just used information they had collected from across the pond. Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo Galilei, and Sir Isaac Newton were actually the first scientists to produce the theories of aerodynamics and lift. According to globalaircraft.com, the history of aviation, George Kalin was actually the first man to connect their theories of these famous scientists. In the early 1800s, George Cayley combined a helicopter and horizontally propelled aircraft to become the first man to focus on the fixed-wing aircraft that we now use today. The first man to actually fly was another British inventor, Lawrence Hargrave. His aircraft flew 312 feet in 1891. That's 12 years before the Wright brothers, and his flight covered almost 3 times as much ground as the Wright brothers' first flight. In 1903, the Wright brothers finally flew. Their first flight was December 17th, 1903, in Kill Devil Hills. They flew 120 feet in a little under a minute. So now that we've changed pretty much everything you thought you knew about aviation, you ready to learn about flying an aircraft on your own?
Sure.
Yeah? All right, good. So starting your pilot journey can be simple. Right around the corner, most airports provide flight lessons or training. The ground school is the first step to flight lessons. Usually it's 18 classes long. It's going to take about 35 hours in school. After that, you have to be 17 to start flying. You need 35 to 40 hours of in-flight training. That can be with an instructor or without. You at least need 29 hours with a flight instructor to fly, and then you have to do 10 hours of solo flight, which is solo, by yourself, cross country, takeoffs, landings, all on your own. So some of the requirements from American Winds Aviation, which is where I started my flight school. The first one, 18 ground lessons. The second requirement for your pilot's license is a grade of 80% or higher on 3 ground checks. Third one is a grade of 70% or higher on an FAA written exam. So here's a book on your FAA requirements. It is massive. That test can be somewhat daunting. So you must also graduate from ground school. You must get your certificate. You must complete 29 flight lessons. So that's the 29 hours with your instructor. So then you have to complete 3 flight stage checks, which is on the runway, before takeoff, with all that stuff. Then you have to get your certificate. Once you get your certificate, you have to complete a check ride with the FAA inspector, which can also be a daunting task. They are very intimidating. If you didn't study up, your best option is to just pay them off and hopefully they take your money. So other than that, once you pass your check ride with your FAA inspector, you can request your private pilot's license, and once you pass all your tests and get all your stages completed, you can become a private pilot. So that is the end of my informational speech. I hope you all learned something today.